It's 5:42 a.m. on the 18th of November 2025. The sun is barely rising over the Caribbean when the radio inside the US Coast Guard operations room cracks with a sharp burst of noise. At first, no one knows what they're hearing. Then the message comes through, tight and shaken. Unknown warship. Holding position off Venezuela. Not local. Not friendly. The room freezes. A live camera feed loads on the main screen. In the pale morning light, a Russian frigate sits steady near Venezuelan waters, its deck lights dimmed, its radar turning slow and deliberate. For a moment, no one says a word. This isn't a drill. This isn't a routine port visit. This is a Russian combat ship sitting in a place where no foreign power has dared to challenge us control for 200 years. The watch officer steps forward, eyes fixed on the screen as another radio call cuts through the static. They're not moving. They're waiting. No one knows what comes next, but every person in the room feels the same thing. The line America always believed would hold has just been crossed. What happened that morning was not just another foreign ship passing through a busy stretch of water. That Russian frigate was the same class of ship Moscow uses to project power far from home. And the place it chose to anchor was no accident. The waters off Venezuela are one of the tightest watch zones in the entire Caribbean. Every radar in the region runs day and night. Every movement is tracked. Nothing stays hidden for long. For 200 years, this part of the world has been the center of the Monroe Doctrine, the idea that no outside power could challenge American influence in the Western Hemisphere. It shaped every decision, every deployment, every warning Washington ever sent to a foreign rival. But when the Gorshkov appeared on that feed, something became clear. That old rule was no longer holding. A new game was starting, and the US was no longer the only player. What made this moment even sharper was the history behind it. Venezuela has been under heavy pressure from Washington for more than a decade. Sanctions cut off their oil profits. Banks froze their accounts. Diplomatic ties fractured. Moscow saw an opportunity. Over the years, Russia sent advisors, built energy deals, and backed Venezuela when others would not. Slowly, a quiet partnership grew. What we saw that morning was the first time it stepped out into the open with full force. For the men and women watching the screen inside the Coast Guard room, this wasn't about geopolitics. It was personal. This was their region, their responsibility. The Caribbean is a place where they run rescue missions, fight smuggling, and support small islands during storms. Seeing a Russian warship sit still, silent, and unbothered felt like watching someone walk into your backyard without knocking. This is why the stakes are high. If Russia can move freely here, even once, it means the balance of power is shifting. It means old rules are fading. And it means this calm morning might be the first chapter of something much bigger than a single ship holding position near Venezuela. The first alert hits the screen seconds after the Russian frigate is identified. A sharp tone echoes through the operations room as the system flags the ship's radar sweep. It is not routine. It is slower, more focused. Like the frigate is building a picture of every vessel nearby. The watch officer orders, push all feeds, eyes on every angle. The room comes alive. Off the coast, a U.S. patrol aircraft is already heading in. At 8,000 feet, the sea looks calm, but on the monitor, the Russian ship stands out like a steel blade across the water. The pilot keeps his voice steady. Target in sight, maintaining distance. No one wants to trigger the wrong move. Back at the command center, another alert flashes. The frigate's deck crew is active, not fast, not hostile, just enough to show they know they're being watched. A Russian officer walks to the starboard rail. Binoculars raised toward the patrol aircraft. A silent message. We see you too. The Coast Guard shifts to a tactical posture. A cutter on patrol is rerouted. Its crew moves quickly. One sailor secures gear near the rail while another checks the forward gun mount. They know they won't fight a warship. Their job is to be ready for the few opening seconds that decide if a fight starts at all. Inside the operations room, a radar technician watches the frigate's return. The bright dot blinks, then shifts slightly. Possible heading change, he warns. The room tenses. But after a slow turn, the dot settles. The frigate isn't approaching, it's aligning, almost inviting the cutter and aircraft to see it clearly. A controlled move, a quiet challenge. The cutter commander radios in. Holding position, visual contact in 5 minutes. His voice is steady, but everyone knows the truth. One wrong signal could turn a tense morning into an international crisis. As the range closes, the crew shifts into a defensive stance. The cutter slows, engine steady. Every eye on the horizon where the Russian frigate waits without moving an inch. The commander raises his binoculars. "They're watching us," he says. "Every single one of them." If you were in command, would you hold the line or push closer? Press 1 to hold distance, press 9 to move in. The moment the cutter reaches visual range, the tension shifts fast. The Russian frigate holds steady, but its radar widens into a long, slow sweep that passes over the cutter and the patrol aircraft above. Inside the operations room, the watch officer watches the pattern. They're scanning both platforms. This is intentional. The cutter drops speed until the water barely breaks along the bow. The crew stands silent at their posts, eyes fixed on the steel silhouette ahead. In encounters like this, silence matters. Anything that looks rushed can be read as a threat. Every small movement becomes a message, even if no one says a word. Then a panel on the frigate opens. Crew members roll out a small rigid hull boat and leave it on deck. Not hostile, but a clear signal. We're ready if needed. The cutter commander studies them through binoculars. They want us to see that. Above, the patrol aircraft adjusts altitude. As it dips, the frigate shifts its sensors and highlights the aircraft for a brief second. Not a weapon lock, but close enough to make every heartbeat in the command room tighten. The pilot reports in. Painted once, no lock. Even 1 second of highlight is enough to change the tone of the entire encounter. At Coast Guard Command, analysts check the data. No signs of weapon systems coming online, but the frigate's behavior follows a familiar pattern, controlling space without firing a shot. This is posture, one analyst says. They're setting boundaries. The cutter now sits roughly a mile from the frigate. Only calm water separates them. The commander radios in. Russian crew observing. No hostile action, but no withdrawal. The waiting is its own pressure, a long stretch where every second feels heavier than the last. For a few moments, nothing moves. Radar still, engine steady. The aircraft circles high and wide. It feels like the ocean itself is holding its breath. Everyone knows what this moment really is, a test of nerve. Then the frigate shifts 5 degrees toward the cutter. Not aggressive, but deliberate, just enough to show who is dictating the space this morning. If you think the cutter should hold that line, press 1. If you think they should pull back, press 9. For a moment, the standoff settles into a tense balance. The cutter holds its line. The Russian frigate stays steady. The patrol aircraft circles overhead. Nothing moves, but no one relaxes. In moments like this, the real twist comes quietly. It starts with a soft alert in the operations room. A new contact appears small, metallic, low on the surface. At first, the technician marks it as debris. Then he notices the detail that changes everything. It isn't drifting. The current is strong that morning, enough to push anything across the water. This object stays perfectly still. New contact. No drift, he reports. The signature is clean, round, and too stable to be natural. It looks placed. Out at sea, the patrol aircraft confirms it. The pilot zooms in. A small metal shape nearly level with the water. A narrow panel catching sunlight. Not big enough to be a weapon, but not harmless. It looks like a relay, something meant to listen, send signals, or track movement. The cutter commander hears the update. If that's theirs, he says, they're watching us from more than one angle. A frigate is one challenge. A second hidden sensor changes everything. Analysts compare radar signatures. The small object pulses faintly every time the frigate sweeps its radar. That means coordination. Someone placed it long before the cutter or aircraft arrived. This wasn't random. It was prepared. The aircraft circles again. Object fixed. No drift. Purpose unknown, the pilot reports. The discovery shifts the entire encounter. The Russian crew isn't just holding position, they're collecting data, distance, timing, reaction speed, how US forces behave under pressure. The frigate is the visible piece. The device is the quiet layer no one expected. The sea is calm. The sky is clear. But everyone feels the same truth. This is no longer a simple standoff. It's a test planned, measured, and unfolding in ways no one saw coming. The moment the hidden device is confirmed, the entire tone shifts. The cutter, the patrol aircraft, and the operations room move from caution to full readiness. No alarms, just a sharp focus. The Russian frigate is no longer acting alone. Something else is in play, and no one knows its purpose. The cutter's engines slow as the commander orders a tight turn to present a smaller profile. Sailors brace along the rails, scanning the water for anything unusual. The horizon is clean, but the calm only makes the tension heavier. The commander keeps his binoculars on the frigate. Watch their deck. Any shift, call it. Above, the patrol aircraft widens its circle and drops lower for a clearer view. The camera zooms in. A small antenna, a sealed housing, and now a faint blinking light. Devices active. Confirmed active, the pilot reports. In the operations room, analysts run through possibilities: a relay buoy, tracking node, or data sampler. Any option means Russia didn't plan a simple standoff. They planned a layered operation to measure US reaction from sea, sky, and command center. They're collecting everything, an analyst says. Then the moment breaks. The frigate shifts again, sharper, more deliberate, turning almost 10 degrees toward the cutter. The wake trails in a long white line. No alarm sound, but every heartbeat jumps. A move that big is never an accident. The cutter commander reacts instantly. All stations, stand by. His voice stays calm, but the deck crew tightens. The forward gun team locks eyes with their officer, waiting for the smallest signal. The frigate isn't speeding up, but its new angle means one thing: it is closing the gap. Above, the patrol aircraft adjusts into a defensive pattern. From the cockpit, the Russian ship looks larger now, more imposing, its deck crew lined along the rail. One sailor raises something to his shoulder binoculars, but for a split second, no one can tell. Hold position, the commander orders. The cutter stays steady, refusing to give ground. Two vessels, nose to nose, waiting on the next move. Even the ocean seems to quiet. Then the frigate slows, not a stop, but enough to send a message. They push forward to show control. Now they're waiting to see if the US flinches. If you think the cutter should push back with equal pressure, press 1. If holding firm is smarter, press 9. When the Russian frigate finally eases back to its original heading, the cutter crew exhales in one quiet wave. No shots fired, no reckless push, just a controlled retreat that feels like the end of a planned test. Above, the patrol aircraft circles again, confirming the hidden device is still fixed, active, and pulsing with the frigate's radar. Nothing about this was improvised. Inside the operations room, the watch officer logs the movement. Frigate returning to previous track. Analysts review every sweep and turn. The pattern is clear. Russia wasn't posturing, they were gathering, testing how close they could push before the US responded. The cutter turns away slowly, holding distance without looking rushed. This is how you exit a standoff without surrendering space. The commander takes a final look. The Russian crew remains at the rail, watching with calm discipline. Above, the patrol aircraft climbs. From high altitude, the frigate and the sensor look like small specks, but those specks carry a large message. A foreign military executed a coordinated operation in the Western Hemisphere and walked away untouched. At Coast Guard Command, senior officers study the timeline. Russia didn't enter US waters or fire a shot, but proved they could operate this close and trigger a full US response without crossing a legal line. That alone shifts long-held assumptions. In Washington, the footage moves quickly through intelligence channels. The hidden device becomes the key detail. A frigate is explainable. A pre-placed sensor mapping reactions in real time is not. It shows planning and intent, Russia shaping a space once considered off-limits. By sunset, everyone sees the bigger truth. This wasn't just a standoff. It was a message that the old rulebook in the Caribbean is fading, and new players are stepping in. If you think this marks a long-term power shift, press 1. If you think the US will still hold the line, press 9.